Hi folks, so I just wanted to do a really quick video on the Sun conjuncting Jupiter tomorrow, March the 5th. And if everything seems really hasty, it is. I'm somewhat rushed today, but I wanted to still go ahead and do this video, and I'm kind of doing it on the spur of the moment. The Sun conjunct Jupiter every year. The Sun conjuncts Jupiter every year. The Sun goes around our chart one whole cycle every year, and it meets every planet at least once through this process. If a planet is retrograde, or sometimes it meets planets multiple times, like Mercury. And of course, famously, there's a new moon every 28 days, so it meets up with the moon every 28 days. So in its process, it meets up with Jupiter once a year. And the Sun conjunct Jupiter is in what I will call conventional Western astrology considered the luckiest day of the year. Now, I have a very different take on this because, so if tomorrow ends up being enormously lucky and fortuitous for you, wonderful. If some opportunity comes through or something happens, or over the past 3 or 4 days as you headed to it, something fortunate emerges, good for you. There's a lot going on astrologically. We had Mars and Venus and Pluto conjunct yesterday. In that process, they were still in a harmonious trine to the Taurus North Node, and therefore involved in a transformation that was supportive. And I'm talking about the way this is showing up in personal charts. I'm not talking about the political situation, which with the Mars-Pluto conjunction would indicate volatility. And remember, depending on where the North Node is for anyone in any part of the chart, not everyone has the sign of Taurus in a particularly glorious part of the chart. And anyway, I'm going down a tangent. Let me just talk about Sun conjunct Jupiter, because as I mentioned to you, the whole political aspect of things I'm going to try and address in a future video. But talking about the various transits that for some of us could produce fortunate results, could very well be the Mars-Venus-Pluto transit trining with the North Node in Taurus, the Sun and Jupiter conjuncting. And not only that, but tomorrow, on the day of the Sun-Jupiter conjunction, we've also got Mars and Venus actually conjuncting together, and within minutes of each other, floating into, rotating into the sign of Aquarius. And this now brings me to the next video that I will do, which, as I said after I did my video a few days ago on the sign of Aquarius, and I titled it in New Order, I knew there was more to say about it, and I will get to it. I will get to it in a future video. When the Sun conjuncts Jupiter, from my perspective, it is the opportunity for a reset in that part of the chart where this conjunction is happening. It is happening in the sign of Pisces. And so for me, what is relevant or important is, where does Pisces sit in your chart? i.e., what house does it occupy and what does that house stand for? That part of the chart could be in line for a major cleanse/reset. With Jupiter, I talk about the ending of a 12-year cycle and the start of a 12-year cycle, wherever it goes. And the conjunction with the Sun is an important marker for this. And the fact that we're having a conjunction with the Sun naturally 2 days after the new moon, as we would expect it to, not only is it a conjunction with the Sun, it's also a conjunction with the Sun that just follows the new moon. It's imprinted on this 4-week period that we're having. So if you know where Pisces sits in the chart, you may feel like you are somehow shedding an old skin and coming into a new version of you when it comes to this part of the chart. It could be, that's the best way that I can describe it. It's a reset. It is and as I mentioned in my New Moon in Pisces video, there's also something to this about, confronting and dealing with and trying to find some closure around issues that have been brewing in this part of the chart since 2014, 2015. And when a planet, as I've also mentioned in that video, conjuncts the sun, it is technically combust. And I just feel like it is a time for that planet to kind of be in conversation with the sun, which is our truest self, our soul, for lack of a different word, and to reset, to kind of reprogram. It's like they have this conversation, and as the sun moves forward from Jupiter, Jupiter can continue to create this auspicious new beginning in the sign of Pisces through May and in November, December of this year, informed by where things are at currently, informed by what it needs to do. Now, when it comes to Mars and Venus and Mercury, it really feels like the sun informs those planets. When we start to deal with planets like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, it feels like the conversation is mutual. With Jupiter and Saturn, you really start to get the presence of the cosmos or another intelligence or God or spirit or whatever you want to call that force. And the nature of this reset is really that much more powerful and that much more profound, because not only does the planet conjuncting the sun get affected by the conjunction, but the sun and our very soul gets affected by this conjunction as well. So it's not just our spirit impacting a planet like Mercury in our thought process, or a planet like Venus in what we value or what we hold dear in our heart, or a planet like Mars in our vitality and our energy. But it's almost as if Jupiter bestows this blessing, this gift, this transformation, this metamorphosis in our ability to deal with or tackle issues related to this part of the chart. We emerge anew from it. That, to me, is the significance in my experience of the Sun-Jupiter transit conjunction. The idea of it being the luckiest day of the year, you know, I don't, you know, if it ends up being that way for you, that's delightful, but that's not my experience. What is more important, and for those of you who don't know your chart, let me just say this and I'll conclude here. For those of you who don't, if you feel like you're emerging out of this past week and into the weekend and into next week with a sense of you being a new you, with a sense of letting go of certain things. Remember, with Jupiter, the beginning is created by clearing the slate on something. It's like this Etch-a-Sketch. You remember the Etch-a-Sketches you used to play with as a child? We used to call them Etch-a-Sketches, those things where you had these two knobs and this kind of screen, and you used to move them around and sketch something on this kind of surface, and I think it was kind of magnetic. It was filings or something. Anyway, it's almost like with Jupiter, the new beginning, the first thing that needs to happen is the slate needs to be cleared. Or someone I spoke to described it as, you know, the old couch being removed, the space being created for the new couch, and then the new couch being brought in. And that is the kind of injection of clarity, that's the cleanse that the Sun conjunct Jupiter provides. So if you're feeling somewhere like you've been dealing with a set of issues since 2014-15, and especially if they've felt nebulous or gaslighty, or have had a sense of deception about them, because of Neptune's continued presence in this chart and other transits that have occurred in this part of the chart since 2014-15, including eclipses of release, then this Sun-Jupiter conjunction is welcome and needed, and may give you a renewed sense of vitality, clarity, perspective around what to release and how to approach this part of the chart anew. You know, I'm reminded a lot sometimes of, for those of you who know the Tarot, the Eight of Cups in the Tarot, where it has this kind of It's such an interesting, it's such a mournful, regretful card on some level, but it has the sense of it's, it's a new you in this part of the chart. That's the blessing of Jupiter. That's when the Sun conjuncts Saturn, it's a sense of urgency and resolve to take steps to build that part of the chart, the Aquarius part of the chart. We had this Sun conjunct Saturn, I think, about a month ago. When the Sun conjuncts Jupiter, it's like a baptism. It's like a cleanse. It's like a reset in this part of the chart so that you can develop a new 12-year relationship with this part of the chart where Pisces sits and the house it occupies and what that house stands for. I really don't want this to be too long, and I'm going to leave it at this pretty much. As I said, if you don't know your chart and you don't know where Pisces sits, I would say that if you feel coming into tomorrow, Saturday, and into the weekend, into next week, feeling a little bit like your Etch-a-Sketch has been cleared, then that's what this conjunction is about. If you're feeling, and it's not a completely, this is why the luckiest day of the year, it's not a happy thing necessarily. Clearing things have a sense of mournfulness to them, have a sense of regret to them, have a sense of goodbyes and endings and resolutions are not, they don't come without their sense of heartache, but they're necessary. The wheel of the chart and the planets just keep moving on and keep moving on and keep moving on. Occasionally you'll have a planet that goes retrograde, but that is for a few degrees. So, yeah. If you're feeling revitalized going into next week, or feeling like you have a different perspective on it, or feeling like you know what couch needs to be removed, or what threads need to be snipped, or what cords need to be, or just how to approach something, an issue that may have been going on since 2014-15, anew, or in a new light, or know what you're going to be done with and what you're going to build and construct, or how you're going to approach the issues related to that part of the chart or to a certain aspect of your life, then that's the feeling I associate with the Sun-Jupiter conjunction, and not some, I don't know, celebration of insane happiness. As I said, if some opportunity or something comes up for you, then wonderful, congratulations, because there are certain transits that could support that, and not just the Sun-Jupiter conjunction. Mars-Venus conjunct, trining the North Node, for some of us that could be, I think those forces have been working for a while, all through February, I think, but irrespective, I've talked enough about that in my last few videos. I'll leave it at this. If you found it useful, feel free to share it, comment on it, like it if you liked it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon so you're notified whenever I do new videos, and I will see you next when I do my video expanding on the planetary transits in Aquarius, and specifically Mars and Venus moving into Aquarius and transiting through it starting tomorrow.